Bob, can you believe this matchup? Reimu Hakurei, the all-star we've known for several seasons of offense, and she's playing defense. What a draft pick that was. And she's got her work cut out for her too. You remember these two, Melissa and Alice? No slouches either. Alright, now here's what they're up against. Reimu's going to be making a lot of lateral moves, but if the offense stays focused, they should be able to cut through some of the more forward passes. But look out, see these circles? Bam, 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 bam. You get sacked before you even know it. It's going to be a hell of a game, Bob. Back to you. You people have no idea how happy I am to finally have this figure. Because I ordered this over 2 years ago. More than 2 years ago. I lived in Iowa and I lived in New Jersey and now I live in Texas. Before this figure finally made its way to my house. And she's finally here. Because, you know, COVID, shipping hell, all of that, understandable. Maybe it delayed even more because I wanted to combine it with another order. That's going to be the next video you see in terms of my anime figure review series. But oh my god, it is about time she came home. It is about time we finally got Reimu Hakurei. And I already have the Remelias. You can see them all the way up there. I have Remelia up there with Sakia right next to her. I might have to move some of the plushies, some of those Nezobiris if I want to fit Reimu up there. But who knows if I want to fit Reimu up there. Because right now the aesthetic is like... You know how like death metal bands are like all scattered and bloodied out and it's like really sharp? It's like that's Reimu. Then we also got, I mean, that's Remelia. And then we also have like the other Remelias right over here in my storage cube. We have all of the alt arts, all of the alternate colors. But that's not what we're talking about today. That was a video from humans past, from my past life as a content creator. Because now I'm a VTuber and I'm still doing the same thing to more success, surprisingly enough. But yes, Reimu, 1/7 scale painted figure. I can't read the rest of that on the front. Touhou project by Good Smile Company. Wonderful works, that means nothing to me. And then it also came with a poster and a wall scroll. The wall scroll's really nice. I just got to iron out those creases. Poster, it's a poster, you know? It's the same thing as the wall scroll, except it's not a wall scroll. But let's just get into it. First, the box. The display is really nice. I always love the big open windows where you can see in. I don't like the side window here. I feel like you could have shown off more of the figure on the side of the box. The other side, that's what we're looking for. This is what I like to see on the box. Top window, I mean, not much going on there. It's the top window. The back gives you a few more angles. It gives all the information, whatever. But the back also shows off, you know, a couple more angles, which I really appreciate. It gives you the top down, gives you from behind, gives you from an angle, and the same angle as the one used in this big picture. So it looks really nice. So let's crack this bad boy open. And again, I have no idea where I'm actually going to put her, but I don't want to tear too much of the box. But we'll figure it out, because I have an entire apartment to play with now. And I know I've been saying it, but we will get that apartment tour video at some point. I feel like we're finally at the point where we're fully settled in, and like now we just have to do spring cleaning, and then after that we should be good. So big storage, and this is something I was really excited about that I'll cover in more depth later, because something that I always complain about is how there's no personality in the stand, and well, this stand has personality, and it makes me very happy to see. Now, I personally don't know where this alternate art of Reimu comes from. I am not the hugest fan of the Touhou series. I will say I like Touhou a lot, and I obviously like it enough to buy a lot of the merchandise. This particular art, I don't know where it comes from. It'll probably be in the title of the video anyway, as I do a little bit more research, so I could put it in the opening. But, yeah. Alright, we have a big, beautiful stand. Like, this is a big stand. This is as big as my head. I like to see it. That does limit the options of where I could put this girl, though. So that is a little annoying. And then let's take her out. We also have our little builder's guide on how everything gets put together. Plastic, not too much, just wraps around her waist and around her back. Big, beautiful bow on the back. And then, of course, her little stick that she uses to beat the shit out of all the yokai. Alright. So now that we have her out of the box, let's see how to put her on the stand. And it shows you how to put the stick in her hand and shows you how to put her on the stand, which, to me, it does not look the best. Like, you can see the foot right here. That's supposed to come into this thing sticking up, which doesn't look very stable, so I hope it like clicks into place or something. But now that it's in there, yeah, I can kind of see that. That does look pretty good. That does look pretty good. Alright, now let's get this stick out of here. Alright, and the stick is as simple as putting it into her hand, apparently. Just gotta twist it to make it really go down. And then there's a little nub on the stick, which I'll show in a later picture, that kind of stops it from going further down her hand so it doesn't slide all the way down, which I kind of like. So, very simple to set up, which is very nice. The stand does seem pretty stable, and I like that. I hope there isn't any bend issues with her leg, though. We've had bend issues in the past with some of our anime figures, but that's a story for another time. Or a re-upload. Who knows? But first impression of the figure is it looks just as beautiful as it does in all of the pictures that I saw online. There's a lot of detail to look over and a lot of detail that we will be looking over. But I will also say, first impression, I'm not sure if it's worth the price. The price was pretty expensive for this figure. It was like more than your normal scale figure, which, let me pull that up real quick. This does come in at around 4,000 to 5,000 more yen than your average scale figures, so roughly 23,000 yen compared to, usually it's 18,000 yen for a figure, which it's not too bad. I definitely do see where some of that extra money went to, because, again, always complain about the stand, but, I mean, usually I don't start at the bottom, but we'll start with this stand. The stand looks lovely. Like, it just looks very nice, and I can't really parse what's going on here, but it's beautiful. Like, it just looks nice, and that's all it really needs to do, is it needs to accent the rest of the figure, and from there, we could take a look at the rest of the figure. Now, we usually start with the tip of the head, but the very highest point is going to be her little prayer stick that she uses to beat the shit out of yokai. So let's start looking over that. So, not too much detail in here, which means there's not too much room for flubbing. It's pretty flexible and it does move around quite a bit in her hand, so you can, adjust the angle if you like. And another good part about it is that it, as far down as it goes, that's where it stops. It doesn't go any further than it needs to. It doesn't go, it's really easy to stay in her hand. And again, not too much detail here, not too many scuffs really, because how can you really mess up plain white and then a plain brown stick? So a decent first impression. Now let's get into the real detail. We're going to start with her bow, and my goodness, does it look nice. Like the bow is one of her defining features, and it frills out really nice. Like we could take a look at every single little bit of it. I'll start with the middle of the bow where it actually knots up. Details look really fine right here. There does seem to be a tiny bit of a paint error on her left side, my right side, because I'm looking at her. Does seem to be a tiny little brown piece. Not sure if that's dirt or something that I can rub off. But the details look really nice. It looks natural. The pattern alongside the edge looks very well done, very well painted, even coming up and around the curve of the bow. It's very consistent, looks very nice. And the white frills coming out too. No issues there, no scuffs, no paint errors that I can see. So already off to a good start. And then we have these two little buckles that come off of her bow as well. And these are also painted very nicely. So usually with things like these, with very small details like these, you're going to see like paint overlapping to places where it shouldn't be overlapping. And you don't see that here. I do not see that here. So very well done on the detail. Now moving into her hair, we'll start with the ponytail that's coming out of the bow. And that looks lovely. Like the way it flows, the way it's moving around, it shows that she is in action. And it's very consistently moving in the same direction except for the one cowlick because, not all hair moves in the same direction all the time. So it looks really nice to see that. We'll move into her ahoge on the top of her head, and it's kind of being pushed back. Again, she's moving forward. It's being pushed back by the wind. It's still curling forward a bit because, again, I have curly hair. I can relate. It just goes wherever the hell it wants to. And it's, still curling forward. But again, no paint errors. The chestnut brown of her hair looks really nicely painted. There's highlights in the right places. It gets darker where the hair is presumably getting thicker. And again, with all types of hair, the shading is going to differ depending on where exactly you're looking or what the lighting is. So I think it's really, really well done. We can go down into the rest of the hair that's kind of covering her face. She has another little cowlick in the front that's kind of bending to the side, and that looks like it's kind of just plastered on there. Like, it looks like it was just glued on. Like, at least with the ahoge, it's coming up and out, and then it's being pushed back onto the top of her head, so that kind of makes sense. But this little curl on the front of her head, I'm not sure what's going on with that. It looks like it was just an afterthought that was pasted on, and you can even tell with the sculpt that it looks like it was just glued on afterwards, which I don't really like that. Again, it does look very well painted, no scuffs, but I don't like that piece of the design. Like, if it were more ingrained, or if it, at the very least it didn't look like it was just glued on, then I'd be a little more forgiving. But that's, one complaint so far. Let's move into the little red things that are holding her side tails together. And again, these are very well done. It doesn't look like there's any overlap of the paint. The paint stays on exactly where it needs to be. The hair coming out of it as well, that's laying on her chest. I'm looking at her left side, my right side again, where her eyes are pointing. It lays very naturally on the chest, and although we were saying that she's like in motion, her hair's blowing back, she's moving forward, you can kind of see there's a little bit of tautness while it's laying on her chest because it goes back and then up. So you can kind of see there is still motion in the hair, like it's being pushed back. On the other side of her face, we have a few more loose hairs coming off of her, and that's some really nice detail. Like, that's detail that you usually wouldn't see in other scale figures because they would either, just leave the one ahoge on the top and let it be. Or with, like, I'm looking up in my Aqua figure, they would just paint colors of hair different, or they wouldn't go this far to make, you know, one long strand of hair especially look like it's coming naturally out of the head. Like, that's a really nice detail, because it looks like it didn't get into that little side tail, you know. Princess calls it a chongo because she's Mexican. I call it a hair tie, but that's not what we're looking at here. This red thing, I'm just gonna call it a hair tie. But like, that one piece of hair was not caught in the hair tie, so now it's loose and kind of whipping around, and that's very relatable, like those flyaways. And it looks nice. Like, you could see going up into the head, it molds back into the rest of the hair. Not like the hair that was on the front, like I said, was swooping to the side. These hairs come out of the head. They are coming out of the rest of the hair, and that looks amazing. Like, that is one very small detail, but that looks amazing. Like, very nicely done with that sculpt. Very well done. And again, no bleeding over with the paint. All of the paint is exactly where it needs to be. This hair looks fantastic so far. And now we can push it to the back of the head, where now we see, you know, some of her strands of longer hair. Again, like, you can kind of, if you look up, you can kind of tell that it's the hair that's supposed to be coming, like, off the back of the neck, as opposed to, like, the top of the head, where the hair will be longer. And although it's not even, and you might be able to justify, like, oh, some of her hair is being pulled up by her ponytail, and that hair is probably missed. I'm not sure about the length of this hair. It seems a little too long. But again, no technical errors, no technical issues. The paint looks nice and consistent. There's no translucency in any spots. Like, the hair does get a little bit lighter and a little bit darker as we go around it. It just overall looks really nice. And especially the layering of the hair too looks very natural. And that's something that some figures do get wrong, is that they make the layering of the hair look like it's not really there. Whereas we have right here, the layering looks very good for the most part. I will say, again, for these two longer hairs that are coming out, they look a little unnatural, and I think it might look better if they weren't there, or if they were at the very least, like, a more similar length to the rest of the figure. But overall, very, very well done. Now let's move over to the face. After being so impressed by all that hair, we have the hair hanging in front of her face, and she looks very wistful. She has a very nice and gentle expression, which, you know, if you know anything about Touhou, she's usually not so nice and gentle. But here we get to see a different side of her. She's looking as if, you know, she's flying forward, and we can kind of see that with the rest of her body motions, and again, her hair flying backwards. She looks like she's looking off into the distance at something, you know. It's a very nice, soft, gentle expression. The stickers for her eyes and her eyebrows are very well done as well. They don't look off-center or out of shape, or just nothing wrong with them, really. And then we get into that gentle little smile of hers. Like, it's not a big smile. It's just her lips kind of upturned, like, yeah. I am in a decent mood right now. I'm feeling pretty nice. You know, there's a nice spring breeze. There's a nice, you know, wind flowing about. I'm having a decent time. I'm having a good time. So a nice gentle expression, looks really well done. And honestly, nothing else to say about this. It's just really well done. Moving down into her torso, we have this white thing that goes around the back. And similar to her bow, pattern is very well done. It's, you know, done as best as it can be. It's painted on very well. There doesn't seem to be any overlaps or, you know, any issues with the lines, you know, being out of place. No issues with the lines or anything. It's, you know, just a plain white cowl. I think that's the right word for it. And, again, no issues. And that's the thing they say about sound design and a lot of other art types of work. People will only notice if you mess up. And if you do everything right, they won't notice. And right now, I'm noticing everything is being done right. We come into this little yellow scarf here. Again, no issues. And I don't want to gloss over it and be like, oh yeah, no, nothing's wrong, let's move on. I do want to, you know, appreciate the fact that it's well done. Like, look at the way the fabric folds in on itself as it billows forward. And it's double layered too, and it's not just the same thing repeated twice. These are two distinct pieces of fabric doing two different things. Like they're flowing in different ways. The fringe is different. There's, again, like where the scarf meets the red shirt, no issues there, no paint errors, no, I don't even see any like sculpting scuffs either. That's something I haven't mentioned a lot either. No scuffs. Really well done. As we get into the rest of the red shirt, and again, the material gets a little darker where it gets thicker and where it, bends together. It looks very natural, again, kind of pushing backwards. It looks smoother on the front because, again, that wind is pushing forward, and then it's all scrunching up in the back because of the way she's bending her body, because of the way the air is moving around her. So it looks very naturally done, very well done. And before we move into the arms, I do want to mention the big bow on the back of her skirt. All of her outfit is red, so I do imagine there is not going to be any, paint errors, and if there are, it's red on red. So it's going to look fine. This bow on the back, where it meets her skirt, it, looks like it is, if you take a really close look, you can kind of tell that it's a peg in the back, but you're not going to be looking that close, and you're not going to be looking at that angle. So if you just look at it head on, like this picture should be showing you right now, it looks perfectly fine. It looks perfectly well done. No artifacting, no errors, really. The only issue, I think, is that the knot of the bow is not a distinct entity from the ribbon coming off of it. Like, the bow to the left is attached to the ribbon that's flowing backwards. Same thing with the right. So it's not like the bows on the previous figures we've seen where, hold on, what was the previous figure I did? That was the Kirara Fantasia Coco. And the bow, like the ribbon coming off of the bow itself, was a separate entity. Here, it's not, and I feel like, it's a quick little cheat to save time, which I definitely don't mind. We're not going to be looking at the back, and so this kind of detail, not really a bank breaker. Not really a backbreaker. Not really an issue. I'm just noting it because it is something notable, because I am autistically taking a very close look at it. And I think that's a good time-saving detail where, if you can make it, go ahead and make it, because no one's really going to notice or complain about the fact the ribbon is attached to the bow. Like, who's going to complain about that? Nobody. I'm only noting it because it's different from other figures I've seen, which is what makes it notable. Now we can move into the arms. We'll move into the arm that isn't holding her prayer stick. And I'm sure I might get some comments telling me, it's called whatever this is. And I don't know, because I am culturally inept for everything Japanese outside of sumo wrestling. So going into her left sleeve, I'm looking at it on my right, her left. Again, these very small details, the little red thread going through the sleeves that you can tell, because the inner sleeve is red, the outer sleeve is white, and you can tell that's how they're stitched together. It looks good. Like, I'm not noticing any overlap of the red, off of the little rectangles it's supposed to be on. On some of them, though, there is white coming onto the rectangles. Like, the rectangles are maybe a little bit off. But that's not too big of an issue. Like, this is the first painting error, and it's not even a very big painting error since the bow at the very top. And even then, like I said, it might just be dirt or a tiny little piece of dust that I need to wipe off. So again, on a very small detail like that, it's not too big of an issue. And if anything, it could possibly be written off as, it's handcrafted, it's hand sewn. So of course the lines aren't going to be perfectly straight, which, that's a little bit of personality right there. That's a little bit of, interesting detail that you could write off as something like that. I don't know if her arm sleeves are handmade or not, but if they aren't, or if they are, it doesn't really matter, but it does give it like, a self-made kind of look. And that just might be me overanalyzing it. If we go up closer towards her elbow where the sleeve comes together, again, the rectangles do kind of come off of where they're supposed to be stamped, but because the material all up here is so tight and, squeezing her arm so it doesn't fall off, you can kind of justify the look by the fact that, oh, the thread is much tighter up here, so of course it looks a little more scuffed, and it looks a little more, bent out of shape because it's supposed to be. The material is tightly wrapped around her arm. And the little bow on the back, a nice, cute little thing. No issues here, no sculpt issues here. No paint issue either, especially on something so small, so that's nice to see. And then we'll come down into her hand and her forearm. Her hand is like being pushed back again. That's not a very natural pose to have her hand in. But it looks fine. She doesn't have any nail polish on her nails. It's just your average, ordinary hand. The palm of her hand, it looks like an anime figure palm of her hand. And, yeah. And, of course, for all the perverts out there like me, her armpit looks well sculpted. Like, it looks like an armpit. That's exactly what an armpit should look like. And, that piece of muscle that goes down into her breast, that looks well sculpted too. Like, that's a part of her chest that goes down into her breast. And then, the pit of the arm, the shoulder, her side right there, where normally you might be able to see some rib cage. It's all well done. Like, no issues, no complaints about that. It's all skin tone, skin color. You can't really mess that up unless you really mess it up. Let's go into her right arm now, and it's more of the same with the material. In this arm, she's holding her stick, which we covered already. And here you'll be able to get a better look at that little rectangle I was talking about that stops the stick from going even further down, probably, sliding down her skirt, scratching it or whatever. And it stops at the hand to make it so that, it doesn't do anything else, which I think is perfectly fine. Of course, it does stick out a little bit, and I would like it if it was hidden, but if you do hide it, then the flow doesn't really look right, because you could see in this position, the little wavy things at the end are being pushed back, again, because she's moving forward by the wind. But if you twist it around, now that's going in a different direction, and it doesn't really look right. So that's a little bit of a trade-off. One might be the most major complaint so far, and honestly, that might only bring it down from, like a 10 to a 9.5, if we're talking about, on a scale of 1 to 10. The rest of her sleeve, again, the way the material is bending, you can kind of justify some of the very minuscule paint errors on the thread on her sleeve, as, the material is bunching up in a strange way, so of course it's going to look weird, which, passable. And really no complaints here. I feel like I'm going to be glossing over this mostly because it's the same as the other sleeve. The bow looks fine. The paint job looks fine. I don't see any major scuffs either. Overall, just a very well done. Very well done. Now, before we move into her skirt, we have a little bit of midriff to look at, and I mean, it looks pretty plain. There's not much else going on here. It's just a belly button, just a navel. Where her skin meets the skirt, I don't see any, again, like, I don't see any of the red bleeding onto her skin. I don't see any of the skin color bleeding onto the skirt. Very, very well painted. And now, as we get into the skirt, like, just doing an entire 360, we already did the bow, and the skirt is much more of the same when it comes to, the pattern around the edge, the underskirt billowing out, and this is all stuff we've said before on this channel, especially. It looks good. The underskirts, like, there's two underskirts. One is like a pinker color, another's a white color. It all looks fine. It all looks perfectly reasonably done. You can't really mess up this part, and even then I'm looking around the edges of the skirt at this pattern to see if there are any, errors or any, like, lines where they don't match up or whatever, and, it's all well done. I mean, there are no issues. This is a very, very well done figure. And, I mean, I feel like I'm going to be glossing over the skirt, but there's not too much to talk about this skirt. It's just a skirt. So we will move down into the legs, and she's wearing her bloomers, plain white, as she does. The legs look fine, the knees look fine, the ankles look fine, the calves look fine, the thighs look fine. Like, again, these are things that you're not really going to be looking at and that you're not really going to be seeing, so there's not a real point in putting too much detail into them. but you'll still have those assholes that put like a massive camel toe on a girl anyway. Going down into the socks and the shoes. The shoes look really nice. Like that is a nice sheen on those shoes. Like those look like brand new loafers. Like these are nice looking shoes. I might, if I see you in walking down the street at night, I might ask you for your shoes, Reimu. Socks, not much of an issue there. And again, where the shoe meets the stand, I was afraid about its stability, but I'm like shaking the figure in my hand right now, and it is very stable. Like it's in there. Oh. And as I said that, it kind of came out a little bit. So don't shake it too much. If anything, like the stand is going to take most of it and it's just going to shake on its own, like, when you close doors and things like that. You're not going to be shaking it from the stand violently. So, of course, it's going to be not as stable as I like, and especially when we have other figures, like I'm looking at my Kirari and Anzu that we've covered before, where it has an additional stand coming up to support the knees. I think I would have appreciated that for this Reimu, but we don't get something like that, and I don't think it would have taken away from anything. So just an issue with the stability. Brings it down a little bit, and that's just my paranoia, but that's, that's something to be paranoid about, I think. You don't want your figure falling off or the ankle breaking, and this figure that I've been waiting for, like I had it shipped in October. It got here in March. I ordered it in like January of 2020. I've been waiting a long time for this. I don't want this thing falling apart. So now, last but not least, we've already mentioned it before, but the stand of the figure. I don't really get what's going on here, but it looks nice. It might be a reference to one of the games. I don't actually know. But the stand looks nice. It's not your plain, clear stand that has no personality. It's a nice black with this gold accent. It might just be a weird paint splatter or some gold leaf type looking thing. Or I don't really know what this design is going for. And maybe there's some detail lost on me because I'm not a very, very huge Touhou fan. But it looks really nice. And that's something I complain about a lot. Is the stand good? This stand is good. I will stand by that. So overall, a fantastic figure. I asked the question first, is this figure worth $230? And honestly, I'm still on the fence about this. Like, I think it might be worth just your regular scale figure. I don't see anything more impressive in this figure than I do with other figures. Like, you can kind of justify it for the Remelias that I've bought because those have a lot of detail and those have a lot of sharp angles. Those have a lot of fragile parts, and that has a metal peg as its stand, and that has a lot of personality in its stand. So, like, comparing this to the Remelias that were $250, or that I, bought for $250 at a convention, but they were only like $180 retail. Like, comparing this to those Remelias, the Remelias I would pay more for. I have paid more for the Remelias. I paid $300 for the Remelia at a convention. This one here, I wouldn't pay $300 for. I might just be happy with the fact that I paid retail, and that's it. Like, the price point, probably not worth it, I don't think. I like Reimu and I like the figure and I wanted it since I saw it, but I don't think it's worth more than the Remelia figures that I bought. I don't think it's worth more than some of these other scale figures. Like, I'm looking around my room. I don't think it's worth more than Kaga and Akagi. I don't think it's worth more than Coconut or my other Kaga and Akagi in their bathing suits. I don't think it's worth more than Shoko. I don't think it's worth more than my Alter Hanayo. Like, the price point, I definitely disagree with. Not worth the money, I don't think. Again, if you are a very big fan of Reimu and Touhou, by all means, go ahead and take it. If you're just a fan of anime figures in general, I would pass. Because again, paying an extra $50 for what? I don't see anything here that is worth the extra $50. Like, I'm looking at her face, and I know I complimented the hair a lot, but is more detail on the hair really worth an extra $50? Especially when, like, that, if it was an extra $50 and the stand was, like, and if the peg was metal, and if there was an extra stand here to hold up her knees, maybe. But there's nothing here that screams you need to pay an extra $50 for this figure to me. So I don't think it's worth the price. Very beautiful figure, don't get me wrong. Very well done, very well sculpted, very well painted. Probably one of the technically best figures that I own. But I don't think that makes it worth the extra $50. Like, if $50 less means one or two more paint scuffs that I'm probably not going to notice from 5 feet away, because that's the, like, minimum distance I'm probably going to be looking at this thing, then sure, I'll trade that. But maybe I'm harping a bit too much on it right now, but I recommend the figure. I would say try to pick it up secondhand on, like, my figure collection, opened for, you know, closer to $150 or whatever the scale, like, the general going rate for a scale figure is about $180, $190. So I would say that's a much more comfortable price for this figure, and I don't think that's a bad thing to say. So yeah, thank you for watching this review of the Touhou Project Reimu from Good Smile Company. Overall, I like it a lot. I don't know where I'm going to display it, and look forward to the next video, which is going to be the... Actually, I can just grab it right now. Slayer's 30th anniversary New Year's version scale Lena Inverse. The first scale figure for Lena Inverse. Look forward to that video. That's going to be coming out probably the week after this one, unless I have some more episodes of the Leo Dickinson Show online. But this is one that I've been waiting for years. So look forward to that video. Thank you again for watching, and if you liked this content, and if you want to see some gaming content, you can go to my long plays channel, where I have a lot of long plays of past VODs of a lot of different video games. We have Persona 4 scheduled until mid-May, and then Yakuza 7 until probably, I want to say, August? And then a lot of classic VODs as well. Or, I did mention sumo wrestling earlier. If you're into sumo wrestling, I have a sumo YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out as well. You can find those in the, if you click on my channel, they're going to be one of the first things that pops up, my other channels. Thanks again for watching. I will catch you cats later.